Welcome to A Rabbi and a Lawyer Walk Into a Bar, a podcast with relatively well-informed and irreverent musings on religion, news, and society. And now, for your hosts, Rabbi Asher Lopatin and John Geringer.
Hey, John.
Hey, Asher, these fast days just sneak up on us. What's with this Asarah B'Tevet?
I know it's the shortest of the fast because it's just from dawn to dusk. So it's about 72 minutes before sunrise. And here in Detroit, sunrise is so late, you could really eat pretty late in the morning. Have a nice breakfast at 6:40. And then it ends early. But actually, I found this was a difficult fast. Like 2 hours into it, I'm hungry. So doesn't matter how short they are.
And it commemorates Nebuchadnezzar laying siege to Jerusalem in 425 BC, First Temple period, when the walls were breached. That's about 2.5 years before the events of Tisha B'Av, right?
Yeah, so it's so interesting that it's like a warning fast, like 2.5 years, almost 3 years before the destruction. So this is a fast wake-up call, like that doomsday clock. That's 11:59 and 20 seconds or something. And so we're not there yet. We're not at doomsday, but this is the kind of fast that says you better shape up. There are some really interesting, it might be the commemorating the death of Ezra the scribe. It might be the translation of the Septuagint, the forced translation of the Torah. Of course, it's good to spread the word, but not under our conditions, not forced.
Septuagint was into Greek, right?
Yeah, they had 70 different scholars in different rooms. This is in the days of Talmud. This is 2,500 years ago. There is Schneider, who's a great professor, I think at Queens College. He has an interesting theory that, based on traditional sources, that it was about commemorating the death of a great Christian leader who took the early Christians who were too close to the Jewish community and were confusing people and really created modern Christianity. This is, again, 2,000 years ago,
right?
Modern Christianity, which was very different than Judaism, so that they wouldn't be confused. And it's interesting, there are all these moments in Jewish history where we choose, like even Ezra also chose to not build the temple with the Samaritans. They wanted to build the temple when the Jews returned from Babylon with the Jews, and the Samaritans were already living in the land. They said, we want to do it on our own, not you. And likewise with the early Christians, there's a lot of discussion that they had, no, we're Jewish, you're Christian, separate. And it's not always clear that these decisions were, I don't want to argue with the great rabbis of the past, but
it wouldn't be the first time for you.
We could have had 2 billion Jews in this world, maybe. I don't know, but circumcision's a tough one.
The Muslims sold people on it.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know.
We needed some better marketing.
Yeah. But
can you imagine all the kosher restaurants we could have had?
Oh my gosh, it would be like Panama. And but 43, I heard 43 kosher restaurants. Incredible. So speaking of fast days, yeah, but it's interesting. But it is interesting that this fast comes out a little bit around Christmas time. It's something always to think about, that now we're living in a time where our relationships with the Christian world can be a very positive thing, and we shouldn't necessarily feel threatened as perhaps Jews did way back.
Speaking of kosher restaurants, I went to a vegan kosher restaurant last week in Washington, D.C.
Oh, yeah. Was it Souk?
I forgot the name, but I know that it had a kosher certification.
Yeah.
And I people who are involved in that, don't you?
Rabbi Hertzfeld was involved early on. Nissen Antin, I think, does. Yeah, if it's the same one, it's fantastic. And what I love about it is that did you order on the machine? You didn't have to talk to anybody. You just have to. This one you order like McDonald's now. You just press buttons and.
No, this was live. It's called the Botanical Bar.
Oh, okay. Different.
Yeah. It was a DC vegan, DCV, and they had a bar downstairs, and the wine was not kosher, so there was non-kosher wine on the walls. They made it a point of saying that, but everything else, it was vegan food that actually tasted pretty good.
Wow. Of course, it's got to have a bar. That's to be consistent.
Then my friend and I went to a place called Jack Rose, which they claim to have one of the, if not the largest selection of whiskeys in the Western Hemisphere.
Whoa, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. So we got a taster from them, which is delicious, and then a mixed cocktail, and then a campfire, Old West campfire. Have you ever had that?
No, I haven't, but it was good, strong.
Good across the board.
Israel is making fine. I think this happens every couple of years, but apparently there is a really good single malt from Israel. And
You mean milk and honey?
oh, is that what it's called?
Yes, I had a sampling from them, 5 or 6 different kinds, and each one of them were good. One was like a kosher sherry cask, which was fraught
Yeah.
with issues, and there were a few others that actually at the tasting they were fantastic.
Wow, wow. Though I have to say, I do drink, for the record, scotch from Sherry Cask. It was good enough for Moshe Feinstein. I don't know if he ever drank it, but he said it was kosher.
You heard it
And it's
here.
and the London Bait Team says it's fine. Solidarity with the Jews in England. Um, and speaking of drinking, the deal with Hamas. That's
I don't know if I should drink in sorrow or drink in joy. I'm really torn on this to see who is being released. It reminds me very much of the Gilad Shalit deal when it was what 1,000 to 1.
yeah.
And this is not quite that, but still pretty awful. But by the same token, I want so desperately to have as many of the hostages come home as soon as possible. I know their families are grieving or waiting, depending on the circumstances.
It's interesting because as much as we've talked about the importance of the Jewish legal importance of releasing prisoners, and of course this is like such an emotional level, but it is a great mitzvah. But in this case, really getting them home is saving their lives as much as possible. And so some of the Sephardi halachic legal authorities have said that even though releasing these terrorists, and we know from the past they'll come back and they'll threaten Jewish lives in the future. You're really doing that, but the immediate threat to Jewish life involves rescuing the hostages. So we favor immediate threats. We act on immediate threats, even though unfortunately will be threats in the future that probably come from this.
Because wasn't Sinwar part of the last deal?
Yeah, who knows what would have happened? Who knows what would have happened if Israel toys a little bit more with the death penalty? That might be interesting. I think it's a really tough place. John, I will go back to my refrain that we need to bomb Iran. I will say it right here. The Ayatollahs can be listening. Whoever's listening can be on, but we need to seriously bomb them until all the hostages are released and the Houthis finish off the Houthis. Don't go to the hideouts of the Houthis in the mountains. Bomb the Iranian Navy, their oil, their gas, and nuclear stuff would be nice. That's Asherlo Patton speaking up.
Wow, I feel like you are gunning for a position in the new administration.
We'll see what happens. I haven't gotten
Yeah,
any.
this is like the guys and gals who flex on Fox TV hoping to get noticed. Is that the same vibe I'm feeling from you?
I work for Hegseth. I don't know if it worked for him, but
The Senate's out on that, right?
but actually I can vent and all that. It doesn't mean that much, but I think John, you have someone that really does have influence.
I do. I am so honored to have a great congressman, my congressman, Representative Brad Schneider. Brad, thank you so much for taking the time out. I know you're extremely busy these days.
No, thank you. It's an honor to be with you, and it's good to speak to you here from Washington. Always better to be speaking home in Illinois.
You're welcome anytime back here in the 10th district, which is a fantastic district. I keep telling people that I wish all of America was like it because inevitably we get someone like you to represent us who is normal, which is rare these days in Congress.
Yeah, we have a long tradition of representation, bipartisan representation. I'm excited to be starting my 6th term. It's a lot's happening here in Washington.
Wow. Yeah, I remember first meeting you when I moved to the district, and there was those Shabbat Friday evening parties at the beach, and while you were running for Congress, and here you are having been in for over a decade. So it's so great to see. And as through my work, I spent a lot of time probably unfortunately watching C-SPAN. And every time I see you, you're always asking great questions. You're always advocating for Israel. You're almost like a throwback to when I was an intern on the Hill and I interned for Senator Kennedy on his foreign policy staff, when there were like giants in Congress who actually cared about substance. I've always viewed you in that bucket.
Well,
Right.
I appreciate that. Look, I have my role models that go back to a different generation. The predecessors in my seat, when I first got here 12 years ago, John Porter took me under his wing. He had represented our district for 20 years. One of my great honors was being asked to speak at a memorial service for him, just showing that Republicans and Democrats can get along.
And do you think, are they getting along now more than we think, more than we see on TV or wherever we see it? Or do you think there really has been this shift of polarization?
Yeah, it's not a shift. It's a tidal wave. It's what was where people knew each other, where people worked together. For the most part, the two parties have split. And I was watching a Sunday news program a couple of weeks ago. They had 4 freshmen on, 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans. It was on CNN that the subject was working across the aisle. And the Republican from West Virginia, a newly elected Republican, said, I didn't come here to work with Democrats. I came here to destroy their agenda.
Wow.
Now, the fact of the matter is all members of Congress, we're elected by our districts. We represent different districts. Each district is unique in its own way. But all of us come with reflecting, hopefully, the priorities of the people who elected us. And in those priorities, many of them, there's overlap. There's overlap of wanting to make it easier for working families to make ends meet and to get ahead, to make it easier for our young people from across the country to get the education they need to succeed, and to ensure that America continues to lead on the global stage. We saw it with the announcement of the hostage deal, still not fully put together as we speak here on Thursday morning. But that deal that hopefully will bring all of the hostages home, and it's not done until they all come home, that doesn't happen without U.S. leadership. We can't do it alone, but we need to be at the table. And we only can do that, whether it's economic issues, education, healthcare, or foreign policy. We are going to be strongest. We're going to achieve the most when we're working together across the aisle.
And one of the things that seems to be most bipartisan is Israel, which is fantastic to see. What's it like that in some ways it seems, at least from an outsider's perspective, that a lot of your views on Israel are more aligned with the Republicans across the aisle than some of your fellow Democrats?
Yeah, the way I'd say it, John, is my views on Israel are aligned with the American people. Israel is our important ally in a very important region, but Israel is one of our most important allies in the world. And if I put in the context of what we've seen over the last 15 months after Hamas invaded Israel in a heinous, brutal terrorist attack, killing 1,200 people, and then was joined by Hezbollah, by the Houthi, by the Iranian proxies in Syria and Iraq, and ultimately by Iran itself. All of those that I just listed attacking Israel are also groups or countries that see the United States as their enemy. And
Right.
The United States and Israel are aligned. We have a long history together. We may not always agree on everything, but at the core, we're working for a view of the world that is peaceful and hopeful. And Israel's in a dangerous neighborhood. They have to be strong. But I think with the support of the United States, and this is what I've always been committed to and will always be committed to, the idea that Israel, with the U.S. support, working with our Arab partners in the region, I'm the chair of the Abraham Accords Caucus, that we can find a path to break from the gravity of history and find a path to peace.
Yeah. Do you think we've been aggressive enough, America, against Iran and against the Houthis? They're disturbing traffic, and they're probably raising the prices of products because of the mess they're doing around the Red Sea.
For sure, the Houthis are disrupting a significant amount of global shipping, which certainly affects prices. It's a complicated question. We need to start with the goal, and it's got to be more than a goal. Failure is not an option. Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. They must never be allowed. And every president, going back to Clinton and then Bush, Obama, first Trump, Biden, and now with the new Trump administration coming in, we have to make sure Iran never, ever gets a nuclear weapon. I wish it was as easy as saying we just do X, whether that's punch them in the nose or something different, and that would solve the problem. It's not that simple. So there are actions that the West, the US, our allies in Europe, UK, Germany, France, other countries, Israel could take that might set Iran's program back, but then if it doesn't completely eliminate it, they would accelerate it, make it more secure. And we've delayed rather than defeated Iran's nuclear program. I've always been of the mind that we need steps that will block Iran's path to nuclear weapon and then permanently close them. And that's where I think the JCPOA fell short because of the timelines. But since the first Trump administration pulled out of the JCPOA, Iran has marched much closer to a nuclear weapon. The stakes are much higher. Now, in the last 12 months, Iran has faced one defeat after another and is in a very different place. That makes, on one hand, Iran more dangerous. Do they see having a nuclear weapon as necessary to protect themselves? Or on the other hand, is there an opportunity to find a way to change the course in Iran? And that's the question that the new administration is going to have to grapple with.
Yeah. Before I know, John, you want to move on to anti-Semitism in America, but I want to just ask the Kurds, put in a plug for the Kurds. I hope we're still going to stand by the Kurds, and they've been such great allies in fighting ISIS. And do you think that the new administration, we're going to be able to stand by?
I hope so. I think you're right. Look, I was at a farewell dinner for Ambassador Herzog on Monday night, hosted by the ambassador from Morocco to the United States.
Nice.
Wow.
It was a small dinner. There were maybe 12 of us there, but I was speaking with someone who was, until just recently, Barbara Leaf was Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, had been to Syria last month. Next to her was Elliot Abrams. And we were talking about this, and we all, Republicans, Democrats, all agree that the United States has to remain vigilant in its engagement with the region. In particular, in Syria, we can't just turn our backs and walk away. We have to work to give the Syrians a chance to create a government that is more outward looking. I had another conversation with some folks yesterday, a briefing on Syria and Turkey and Israel and those dynamics. Everything is looking inward in Syria, unlike any of the other countries in the region, different from Lebanon. And the U.S. presence working with the Kurds, our presence at Al-Tanf in the south, blocking that pathway for Iran to get weapons to Hezbollah. All of those were critically important actions we were taking before the fall of Assad, and our engagement there is just as important now.
Great.
Fascinating stuff. Okay, a couple quick questions. I know that Asher mentioned anti-Semitism. I know you've experienced it firsthand in the sense that you had some of the Hamasniks protesting your home. What's it like these days in the current environment, being a congressman and knowing that there are no more boundaries, that it's not just protesters coming to your office, but protesters coming to your home?
Yeah, no, look, I had protesters outside my house at 2:30 in the morning, waking up terrorizing my neighborhood. They woke up the neighbors, woke up the children, screaming, banging drums, blaring sirens. But it wasn't just at my home. I have posters of the hostages outside my office. And my office is right off the rotunda where you see when people are giving interviews from the Capitol, they're usually standing right up where those posters are. And 4th of July weekend, the same week that we had the protesters at the House, someone tore down those posters.
Really? Wow.
Anti-Semitism is rising around the world. We established 10 years ago anti-Semitism task force in Congress. Kathy Manning had chaired that. She's no longer in Congress. Dan Goldman is the Democratic lead on that now. I've been a part of that from the beginning, and we'll continue to tackle anti-Semitism. We have to make sure that we don't get to a place where there are no boundaries. We have to call out anti-Semitism and hate of all kinds wherever we see it. And we have to make sure that anti-Semitism and the actors who are promoting it or trafficking in anti-Semitism are not just called out, but are shunned, are shamed, that it's not acceptable to say some of the things that are being said on college campuses, in city council meetings across the country, and even within the halls of Congress. That's crucial, and we will stand up to it and call it out everywhere we see it.
Tell us about the fun ways it is to be a Jewish congressperson. Does Chabad come around trying to put tefillin on you, or how does that work?
So there's a lot of things. First, I'm very proud of being a Jew and being a member of Congress, and as a Jewish member of Congress, that those do go together. On my office door here in Washington, I have a mezuzah. In my desk drawer behind me, I have both Tanakh as well as the prayer book. When my dad passed away two years ago, actually 2 years ago Saturday is his yard site. During Shloshim and during the year of mourning, we had periodic times where I would have a minyan in my office. Oh, there were not just other members of Congress who came to support me, but there's Jewish staff on campus. A chief of staff of one of my former Republican colleagues had lost his father as well. And so we davened together. So, that's a piece of it. So it's a great privilege to be a member of Congress. It's a great responsibility. I don't hide my Jewish identity. I literally will. I wear it on my lapel. I'll be hopeful. I've been wearing this yellow ribbon now for 470 days, I think it is. I will be grateful when that last hostage is home. And when I'm talking about the hostages, we're talking about all 98 hostages. I exchanged messages with the parents of some of the American hostages who are no longer alive, but their sons are in Gaza until they're home, until they're buried, until the family can say Shiva and be supported by the mourners of Zion. There are hostages still in Gaza.
Wow, thank you. I know Congressman Schneider, I know you're very busy, but also we're very busy. We got places to go, I know. But I know you have to vote.
Calm down, Asher. We're not that important.
I got time for one more question and then I'll run and vote. There's 338 have not yet voted.
Okay. Do you feel that Franklin Foer and the Atlantic said the end of the golden era of Jews in America? Do you really feel that kind of tectonic shift or not? Do you feel this is a great time to be Jewish in America?
So I didn't read the article, so I can't speak to specifically what he said, but I hear that
just showing off
all the time. And I have a very contrarian view to that. So we can throw up our hands and say that era of Jewish identity in the United States, I grew up at a time where I could wear my Judaism on my sleeve and be fully a part of all of American society. And that includes from being a sports fan to being a businessman to being a representative in the United States House of Representatives without ever having to hide or cover up the fact that I am also a proud Jewish American. We can let the bad guys win, or we can say, no, we're not going to let them win. And I'm going to hold on to all of my identity as an American, my identity as a Jew, and my place in American society as a Jew and the place of the Jewish community with American society. It's not an either or, it's a both. It can't be an us or them. America is a mosaic of many peoples from around the world. There are Jews from countries all over the world that make up our Jewish community here in the United States. It makes us richer. But as a Jewish community, we have a voice and we have to make sure it's heard.
Wonderful. Great way to end. Thank you so much again for your time. Looking forward to seeing you back in the district. And in the meantime, keep up the great work.
Thank you. We'll see you soon. It was great.
Wow, John, that was powerful.
Yeah, he is one of the good guys for sure. And here we are recording a few days later, actually on Inauguration Day, which harkens back to how this whole podcast started. You and I texting each other by something interesting going on in Washington. The first time was for the second impeachment trial when Trump's lawyer was putting his hand on his head every time he drank water. And I texted you, is he doing what I think he's doing? And next thing we knew, the podcast happened. And we were doing the same thing today during the inauguration.
Yeah, to see the kippah on Rabbi Ari Berman's head was, look, I'm a big advocate for kippot. What can I say? I think it's a great Kiddush Hashem. It means a lot if you can wear kippah. You can wear a hat. It works just as well legally, but there is something really very special about that. And years ago, I met with a small group of American rabbis. We went over to hang out with the British rabbis, the United Synagogue rabbis, and we met with the chief rabbi, Jonathan Sachs of blessed memory. And he was telling us that he felt American inaugurations are like the mitzvah of hakhel. There's a mitzvah at the end of the
Right.
Torah talks about everyone gathering every 7 years, not every 4 years. And maybe Trump will change it to every 7 years.
He may reinterpret the Constitution
Yeah,
just a wee bit.
Let's give him another 3 years. And everyone would get together and the king would read from the Torah. A little different, but I love the drama, whether you supported Trump or not, of everyone coming together and former presidents and Mike Pence. And I never remember his name. Who was the vice president under George H.W.?
You mean Quayle?
Quayle was there.
Yeah, it was good to see him. He had actually helped save the Republic last time when Pence asked him what he should do.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Little known fact, right?
Yeah, amazing. Everyone has their time and their place.
Potato.
So what do you think of Rabbi? I know I'm on a bunch of listservs about Rabbi Ari Berman, the president of Yeshiva University, speaking.
He was great. He was
yeah.
great. He talked about Yirmiyahu and Jeremiah, and not the sad parts of Jeremiah, but the uplifting parts, which I thought was great. I did a little research on him, realized that he's Rabbi Doctor, and you know him, I know.
Yeah.
He received his PhD in the Noahide laws in Ger Toshav. Tell everyone what the Noahide laws are.
Yeah, the Torah, even though it doesn't impose Judaism on everyone else, only the Jews have to be Jewish. But it does believe that there are basic laws of morality, not stealing, not murdering, not eating a limb from an animal while it's still alive.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Yeah, swallowing goldfish probably. Like a lot of fraternity life would be eliminated. And setting up courts. And these 7 laws were considered that Noah kept them, even Adam kept them, except Adam was a vegetarian, so he didn't need the law about not eating an animal while it's still alive, or ripping flesh from an animal while it's still alive.
He would have fit in that vegan restaurant.
Yeah, we're getting back to that era. But probably not. Probably where the tide is turning, there'll still be vegan restaurants, but yeah, I think I got the biggest compliment from Rabbi Ari Berman. I saw him at the APAC convention. I think the famous super spreader one, right before COVID. And I said, Asher, someone in my office came to me and said, you sound just like Asher Patton. So
that's fantastic, because you were at the time competing for talent, right?
Exactly. We were like the same. You're right. Oh, yeah. It was Yeshiva University versus Chovei Torah. Yes. But I loved also, I'll just say, I saw Rabbi Berman on CNN schmoozing with everybody afterwards. He is kibitzing with Hillary Clinton a little bit and with this one. That's something that he was a former pulpit rabbi at the Jewish Center in New York. That's what we do best. We speak, but we kibitz and schmooze, that kind of kiddish. That's what we're best at.
And there's nobody that does it better than you. Although I have to say, I'd love to see more of your sermons sounding like the next speaker, which was Pastor Lorenzo Sewell.
Oh, amazing.
Oh my God. He was on fire. He gave a Martin Luther King speech like I've never heard before. Why can't you and the rest of the rabbis give speeches like that, all fire and brimstone?
John, at the time when you did message me about that, I said in synagogue sometimes you want to do that, but then the congressman would say he didn't quote any commentaries. There's no substance. What's he saying? We're not saying anything. So it is a different audience, but I think I do get a lot of inspiration from this, and it was also a great tribute to Martin Luther King Day. I'm glad that happened. Yeah. And a great tribute to the African-American community that Trump feels voted for him overwhelmingly.
Clearly. And another group that voted for him to some extent, their speaker was removed. Imam Husham al-Husseini, who apparently runs, you know what the Karbala Center is in Dearborn?
Yeah, I've been to Dearborn many times. I never connected with him, but probably a good thing because he's very pro-Hezbollah, I think.
Yeah, he was asked in an interview whether Hezbollah was a terrorist organization, and he didn't say yes. And clearly, under American law, you and I have talked about this before. I'm about to start teaching the national security class. The State Department designates groups as FTOs, foreign terrorist organizations. There are about 60 of them. And guess what? Hezbollah is one of them.
Yeah, I feel Abba Eban said the Palestinians never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. And unfortunately, I just feel that the leadership is so poor in the Arab American, Palestinian American community, Muslim community. Right away, they should have. I imagine, I don't know how this mistake happened, but there are some wonderful imams and Muslim leaders that could have spoken that are not, don't think Hezbollah or Hamas are great people and great leaders, but that community does not know how to put those people up, and these other schleps get put up, and then I can't really say it on this podcast because it's not a nice word, but they get messed up or disenfranchised or
Oh,
hurt.
I wish you would have said the other word.
It's just, do they do themselves any favors? And then it's the engage. I think I saw someone quoted, people become victims. Oh, it's not fair. It's not fair. Well, you should have somehow made sure that the person that, like Ari Berman, he's Yeshiva University. Not everyone was where he is, but so solid. And it's the head of Ethan Allen is Arab American. He's worked with American Jewish Committee, but it's just so sad. And likewise, Palestinians are returning now tragically under Hamas control to a destroyed Gaza. And did October 7th do the Palestinians any good? Do they feel good about it? Did they accomplish something? It's so sad.
Yeah, and I feel like there are elements there that just need to engage in modernity, that need to recognize that violence is not the answer, that recognize that we have to live in peace, but it's not going to happen anytime soon because there is just not another hand to shake on the other side, it seems.
Yeah, it's really, I know now, I guess in the West Bank, the PA is trying to show that they can control terrorists, and they haven't been very successful at it. And it's not even clear the PA, they're terroristic themselves a little bit, but not on the list. They're not on the list. And yeah, until people stand up and say, we don't, these are not the leaders we want. And it's sad that somehow in Gaza, I don't live there, but people didn't stand up to Hamas, and this is what happens. And when Hamas was hiding amongst civilians, no one said, we're going to kick you out. Get out of here. Don't hide
Right.
amongst us. Now, again, I'm not judging people because I don't know what I would have done, but none of that happened. Instead, you have the Hamas people once again flexing their muscles in Gaza, and it's the tragedy. We feel it when we see the people, the hostages, and we feel it when we see the Jewish lives that were taken on October 7th and afterwards. And Palestinians suffered from Hamas, thousands again. And it's a very sad situation, but thank God it's been amazing to see the hostages come home. 3 of them come home.
Again, my stomach churned 100 different ways trying to figure out if I was happy or sad watching the videos from the last couple days on, first of all, the return through our good friends, the Red Cross, who
That.
we can talk about them all day long, and just how the echoes of when they were first captured, when you had not just the mosque people, but the enablers and the bystanders in the community just giving them one last chance of terror as they were loaded onto the Red Cross cars. I felt just sick to my stomach watching that because I realized it wasn't just Hamas, it was significant elements of the society also brainwashed in this way. And then couple that with how I felt seeing all these videos of these young women embracing their family, all their friends who were so ecstatic to see them home. We were taking my daughter to college on the day when that all happened, and I couldn't help but think about that she was the same age as them, and it really hit me hard.
Yeah, these women are so strong. And it really is a contrast because Israel, every country has its flaws, but Israel's all about love and life. And you saw that. And with their friends, and you saw the little kids, everyone chanting, Khaybar, Khaybar, Yahud, we're going to kill the Jews like we did way back in the time of the Quran. And
It was a community they devastated in Saudi Arabia, right? Khyber.
yeah, exactly. And I couldn't care less about battles that we fought 1,500 years ago. We love the Chaldeans and Nineveh, Sancherib. We had all with Assyria. We had all sorts of issues, but let's come together now. And I really feel that there's a discussion now, maybe in order to rebuild Gaza, a lot of people have to be removed, taken care of in order to rebuild it. They have a winter to go through. They have a hot summer. And there's discussions about maybe some of them will want to, like 1 million or 2, relocate temporarily to Indonesia. And I wonder if what we could do is ask the ones who say we want to live in peace with the Jewish state, we don't hate anyone, we just want to live nicely, they'll stay. And the ones that say we want to kill every Jew and we still want to destroy Israel, they should go to Indonesia temporarily and build Gaza. And then we'll discuss how to bring them back.
A de-radicalization program?
I don't know. They could do whatever they want in Indonesia. Indonesia loves the state of Palestine, and we'll have a good time there. And it's far away enough, I hope, not to cause problems for Israel. That might be a really good way of figuring out how Gaza can live in peace. And then, of course, commitment to making Gaza great again. And it can be.
What would that acronym be?
Magic or something. Magic, something, yeah.
MAGA? Make Gaza great again. MAGA. I think that's it.
Could use the same hats. but
did you see, speaking of the hats, did you see when Trump was talking about the January 6th folks who were in prison, he used the same term as being hostages.
Look,
right when he was talking among one hostage and some of the hostage families from Israel. I can't think of just a more grotesque way to think about those two in one sentence.
First, it reminds me of Curb Your Enthusiasm, if you watch about the Survivor. But look, President Trump, it's going to be a mixed bag. It's not going to be all, oh, what a nice man. Oh, it's so wonderful. I just saw when in the inauguration, Miriam Adelson, she'll be worth $100 billion, I think, maybe more. Yeah, so I know she'll keep everyone, even though she has a lot less than Elon Musk, but she has it all in cash because it's all from casinos. So,
also the Jewish press has to fill pages. So it has to talk about, oh, did you see that the secretary to the president is Jewish, and this guy and this gal are Jewish, and did you see what our new ambassador to Israel said? So you're right. I think it will be a mixed bag.
Yeah, I just hope people don't get hurt. I feel that this is breaking just if we pulled out of the Paris Accords. And I just hope Greta Thunberg's okay. She's not going to say, oh my gosh, I forgot about global warming. I was so busy protesting Israel. I totally forgot about the Paris Accords and global warming. Oh no. So
maybe she can go there and build a bunch of solar panels.
Yes, exactly.
A lot of sunshine over there.
It's going to be a rocky years, but next 4 years, but I hope that some good happens, and I really hope. I mean, we've seen possibilities with the fall of Assad, and maybe Lebanon getting its act together, not to be totally in the clutches of Hezbollah. Iran, we'll see what happens, but there is some potential for some good really happening. And again,
you're thinking Trump Hotel Gaza City?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And that's on the shores. It could be beautiful. And I regret I could have gone. This is, I don't know, 20 years ago. Gush Katif was having that's one of the communities, the Jewish communities that were in Gaza, having a big celebration, and I could have gone on a bus, and I never went there. I do hope we can make it back to Gaza in peace, with Palestinians and Jews and everyone living together. You got to be hopeful. But I do want to say, John, I never, from the pulpit this Shabbat, I talked about Sudan and the disaster that's occurring there, and what can we do to avert the famine, to stop these factions, the rebels, from fighting the government? And unfortunately, the UAE is supporting the rebels. So I just don't want to just forget about some of the huge potential tragedies that are brewing in our world.
I'm reading a book right now called The Back Channel. It's by William Burns, who was an ambassador to, among other places, high in the State Department, but ambassador to Jordan. And he was talking about some of the heady times when peace was in the air and they were thinking about the agreements between Israel and the PLO and Jordan, and how there was a lot of hope in the air. And let's hope that hope can return.
Yeah, absolutely. We believe that the whole idea of Mashiach is that the world could get better, and we're hopefully going in the right direction.
And the Israeli national anthem is the hope, Hatikva.
There you go. Absolutely. Beautiful. And actually, I just saw the International Criminal Court of Justice, ICJ, is getting a new chair who is the pro-Israel person.
That's right. She wrote the minority opinion, which was pro-Israel. So it'll be great to have someone who understands international law maybe a little bit better than some of her predecessors.
Yeah, so who knows what'll happen? Good things ahead.
All right, as usual, leaving optimistically.
Okay, take care, John. Let's be strong and hopeful.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you for listening to this episode of A Rabbi and a Lawyer Walk Into a Bar. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to get our next episode delivered right to you. If you really like us, please consider leaving a review and sharing this with a friend. That would really help our efforts. And finally, to contact us and for more show-related information, please visit our website, rabbilawyerbar.com. Special thanks to our production team, David Stone for the introduction music, Andrew Bauman for the artwork, and I'm Nicholas Tantillo. This podcast is co-produced with Front and Social Studios in Chicago. Disclaimer: the views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent. Copyrighted material, all rights reserved.